Well, nice to have some sunshine today, the 13th of June, after a few very wet days, even cold days, where so much has been blown down. So many cherries off the tree, conkers off the trees. I wonder what damage it will have done to fruits on trees and how that will affect crops and foods and production. It's certainly not normal June weather. But then, is geoengineering true? Are the chemtrails true? What do we know? But we know that people are very sick and a lot of suffering down here on Earth because of coercive control of fear, of stress and fear and grief, hurt and pain from corruptions and from extreme wealth. But God has a promise to restore our world, and if only we can live with His moral and righteous laws for justice, for peace and safety, for trust for trust to exist, from justice upheld for peace and safety. So I think we're living in the end times, and the extreme creation of fear and stress for control, which creates anxieties, mental health disturbance, confusion, allowing a system to abuse. Anyway, this is a poem called Taxing Taxes, and I'm reading it as I'm going to put my washing out on the line on this dry day. Taxing taxes. The bedroom tax, the council tax, the income tax and value added tax are taxing you and me indefinitely, making us weary to infinity, and my ancient granny ain't so dandy. We used to have a cult of faith that now we need to cultivate for our youth to rise and prosper, to make our parenting seem proper. There ain't no colours and ain't no genders when we evolve into being human beings, being humans, being loving beings, being human, humane. That is all that is asked from above, that we do love with love's laws. That is how we open doors to parallel worlds of life so fine. We can drink fine wine and have time to put washing on the line, to air away the life not fair of a struggling generation of good people who care. We are educating with the wrong food for love. We are filling with fast food, dense with mood and capital annihilation, when it is time to leave the station of a nation in poverty. Poverty is only a state of mind of duality, where there is no equality, just austerity. But now it is time to rise and thrive, to be the best we can be, which can and will set us free. Abundant life is just a change of thought. And we are all one when we attain to love. Got this one as well, which is a play on the word of Monopoly. And the game of Monopoly was actually created by a faithful lady. I'm And she created it to show how monopolising causes, what we all play in Monopoly, what we see and play in Monopoly. Monopolising. And it was to show the negative aspect of it. So I've grown up in the generation who played Monopoly. Personally, I can't. I don't play Monopoly because, I did when I was younger. But anyway, Monopoly. Just one thing to say: the rent is too high. No fun playing anymore. We need a new game where we all can thrive, where I becomes we, where mono becomes poly. And God has a promise for revival and restoration and the new heaven here on earth, and justice to be upheld for peace and safety. I think we do need to remember the divine feminine, the mother love. Mother love is divine. The mother love is what makes a home, really. And yes, we have male and female traits in both men and women, but it's about balancing them. And it's all about balancing our hormones, actually, because when things become extreme, it's just hormonal confusion, actually. And we know Jesus was born in a stable, that's what it tells us. And that's most likely true. But he actually is born too stable to stabilise our bodies to love and not fear. And so we have to have faith. And he says not to positively die. Well, actually, Genesis, not to positively die from eating from the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And there's so much bad being educated, indoctrinated in this world. We see the abusive and sinful entertainment that people drink. And then people drink too much alcohol to take away the pain of the results of immorality, violence, war, rape, abuse, child abuse, child trafficking, women trafficking. It really it's hell on earth for some in these times, in these end times. But we have the promise. We have the promise of restoration, of love, of justice to be upheld for peace and safety, because Jesus Christ is the foundation and the fulfillment of the law for justice, for peace and safety, for us to attain to spirit. So I know many people who say, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. But we've grown up in a time where we don't know. We don't know where that justice came from. But now it's time to learn that it is from that whole Spirit of love anointed in everyone, in everybody, because love is not a cortisol stress hormone, which is fear. So may we put Christ at the head of all of our families, and may we live and love together in loyalty and unity and oneness and acceptance of love, of the divine love, to make life beautiful. Memory Mountain. Memory of a mountain holds memory in magma. Elements hot, molten in subterranean lakes of liquid fire, pressure rising like blood, gaining momentum, waiting to erupt, waiting to rupture, cancers to create and breastfeed the promised new world. And the promise of the new heaven is the new Jerusalem. And Jerusalem means twofold peace. Peace within and peace without. And that's something we have to attain to from the wonderful counsel of God's moral and righteous love. From facing the truth and the trauma and things that have taken that love, joy and peace away, things that have caused depression, mental health, anxiety, grief, hurt, pain, a destruction of love, because in our body it's the autonomic nervous system fear response. And it is that simple, hence why the change is just as in the twinkling of an eye, because it's a nervous system change. Anyway, this poem was inspired by Jerusalem by William Blake and music by Sir Hubert Parry, till we have built Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land. O green and pleasant land of the dove, what has happened to peace and love? For Jerusalem that was being made here is now being turned into terror and fear. O green and pleasant land, do you hear? That Jerusalem that is made here is twofold peace that is meant to be from living a good life positively. Positively living means not to die from negativity that is the lie, lies from love's opposition called stress. It is the stress that creates in us such a mess. Jerusalem, negative you are not meant to be, but healing our lands with positivity. The little sparrow. There. And ultimately it is about us attaining to peace. But that's something that we have to consciously attain to, overcoming the fear, overcoming the truth hurt, grief and pain, with the whole spirit of love anointed. And the new heaven reveals the conscious process for doing this, and how we need to have courage to face those fears, courage and faith to seek our peace and happiness. We have to be able to wrestle between what was right and what was wrong to find the right way. We have to be able to forgive. We have to we have to have courage, faith, happiness, peace, wrestle between what's right and wrong. We have to be able to forgive. We have to hear what that pain is saying. Hear, where did it come from? What's the origin of it? What was the sin that caused that pain? Was it something that you did? Was it something that was done to you? And we have to adhere to the process of love. And then that's when the body will release the endorphin reward, the topaz. And we have to tolerate others on their journey, because we're all on that journey. It is our life purpose to seek for healing. It's hard work. We have to have trust, and only the truth will set us free. And that's how our body changes from fear to love. And so the end, salvation. The end is the beginning of the word endorphin. I'm playing on the word endorphin there. End. The end is the beginning of the word. The end is the beginning of love's promise to end man-made trauma, grief and pain. To end inner turmoil and confusion. To end abuse, regret and shame. To end the sickness of mind delusion. To end the trauma, grief and pain. The end is the beginning of the word endorphin. The end is the beginning of the word. The end is the beginning of God's promise to end man-made trauma, grief and pain. The end is the promise of salvation. The end is the promise of rebirth. The end is the conscious healing message for peace and heaven here on earth. The end is the promise of new heaven, where the truth will set us free from pain, where mourning will be completed, for love to reside in us again. The end is the promise of new heaven, where the stones will cry out for rebirth. The end is the beginning of the word endorphin, for peace and heaven here on earth. And that's how we attain to the crown chakra of peace. And the chakras, I know many Christians reject and don't understand chakras and crystals, but it's just the energy, frequency, a vibration that we resonate at in accord with our endocrine system, which is our hormonal system. So remember, Jesus Christ is born to stable. The whole spirit of love stabilizes our body to love. Not stress, grief, hurt, pain and fear that they will make lots of money educating us from. Yeah. So God has a promise to wipe away every tear from our eyes, and death shall be no more. There shall be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, because the former things have passed away. And James 2:26 says, the body without spirit is dead, just as faith without works is dead. God bless. Time for the new heaven here on earth, as promised, for the promised land. The light is returning, and we are the light of the world, and light is the full spectrum of colour. Can you get a rainbow arc without the full spectrum? That's one for you scientists to research. And perhaps the Ark of the Covenant, which contains the 10 Commandments, Aaron's rod, which was almond, which is about first fruits and being awake and watching. And Aaron had the breastplate of judgment, which was also from gemstones. And Jesus says, as he goes into Jerusalem, when the Pharisees told his followers to be quiet, if they remain quiet, the rocks and stones will cry out. To the new heaven, this is the cry that I hear for restoration and revival of God's glorious love, through us attaining to peace in our crown chakra, with the crowns of revelation, the crown of immortality. So don't count the years. We don't need to count in man-made linear time. The crown of righteousness, the crown of life, the crown of glory, the crown of righteousness. Oh, I've got a link, I'll put it in underneath. But anyway, that's when we attain to peace within our body, which is not a cortisol stress hormone, but naturally occurring endorphins from our parasympathetic nervous system. And we are changed just as in the twinkling of an eye. God bless. Hallelujah. The light is returning. And Christ says he is the light of the world, and he tells us that we are the light of the world when we do God's will. God bless. Hallelujah. Keep faith. The light is returning.